Hey everyone, welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. I am Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. It is Monday, April 13th. We're kicking off Bowerman week on the site. Gordon, how are you doing?
Doing good. Listen to a couple of your podcasts without me. Uh, I had a little bit of some disagreements with some of the takes you guys were having without me, but it's okay. That's what happens when you have a three-way podcast. Can't be involved in every conversation, so you can't have my Gordon opinion represented 5 days a week. Only 3 to 5 days a week, so it's okay. But there was one thing I wanted to mention. The news broke
Mm-hmm.
about the 2020 World start dates. Uh, and I don't think you guys really mentioned
2022.
how the 2022 start dates, how unique that start date is. So, a July 15th start date, it's the first time ever that Worlds will be held in July, right? The
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
previous earliest since 2000 was August 3rd. So, that was the second most recent. So, we're adding, 18 extra days earlier. And I did some little analysis from now till 2000, so the past like 20-ish years.
Okay.
There's only going to be 34 days between the end of NCAAs and the start of Worlds. Now, for perspective, the next so that's the shortest it's ever been. The next longest is 48 days, which is a full 2 weeks almost, and that will be 2021, which is when the Olympics are going to be. So it's even shorter than what was already going to be the shortest. So the actual shortest it's ever been that we've actually held the meet was in 2017, where NCAAs ended on June 10th, and then 55 days later, August 4th, we had Worlds. So to go from 55-day break to 34-day break, that's pretty big. And I know you think like, oh, it's easy. You just NCAA's 2 weeks, USA's 2 weeks, Worlds. We've never had USA's this close to Worlds. I know we think it always should be, but the closest USA's has ever been to Worlds is 31 days in 2004, an Olympic year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not, obviously, it's going to be less than 31 days because NCAA's is 34 days away. So it's going to be in the 20s. So I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of interesting having such a close Worlds and USA date. And you guys didn't seem to think that was that big of a deal.
Well, I just think we had plenty of time to discuss it. We got 2 years. I didn't want to burn that one in April of 2020. I like that that was your number one gripe. I was waiting for you to have some sort of opinion about something Lincoln said. I mean, everybody's disagree. Who's ever not on the pod listens in fury at the other
Yeah.
two people doing the pod, and they're saying wrong, wrong, wrong about it. I like your guys' pod personally. I don't think you're that far off based on everything. I just like it when you argue about arbitrary dates. You bring what was the 2019 number? Must be huge from NCAA's to
Well,
Worlds,
so 2019, the difference was 111 days.
and that's the biggest.
That's the biggest. Tied with 2000 was 111 days. So most of
Okay.
the years, it's anywhere between mid 50s to 70. So in the 60s range. That's what typical time frame is. It's a 2 month time frame between end of NCAAs and the start of Worlds. But now we're cutting that completely in half to a 34-day time frame, which I think is very different. I don't know. It's just
Okay. I mean,
different.
well, let's take a look here at how the NCAA athletes did this year, who
But
made it to Worlds.
for me, it's not even about NCAAs. It's about how USA's has to be within that window, right? Because you're not going to have USA's before NCAAs. So the real thing I want to talk about, the real thing is about how close USA's. It's not really about the NCAA athletes. It's more about USA athletes are going to have to peak for USA's and then 2 weeks later have a second peak, as opposed to being able to get like a month in to get ready for Worlds to peak. I think it might help or
They'll
hurt.
be
I don't know if
fine.
it's going to help or hurt, but we'll find out in 2022.
I think they'll be fine. But I want to look at last year. So Grant Holloway won gold, so that worked out well. Wyland Jonathan Scott fourth in the 400 and ran a PR. Good. Tiana Daniels made the She made the final. She made the final. That's right. So she ran well to get to the final. I know that she didn't have a good race in the final, but she got to the final. Bryce Hoppel, the guy never really had a bad race all year, so he could have Worlds could have been on Thanksgiving and he would have been fine. I think a shorter turnaround would help them, wouldn't it? You don't think it would?
I don't know. I just think having to do conference 2 weeks, regionals 2 weeks, NCAAs 2 weeks, USA's 2 weeks, Worlds 2 weeks. That's a lot of like racing every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. I don't know, with no break.
Yeah, I guess it's the incremental build versus the big race, a bunch of time off, and then having to build back up debate.
Yeah.
I mean, the good people will figure out how to do it. Maybe there'll be a lot of people debuting at conference. Maybe we'll see that. Like you run your conference race as your season opener. So because you don't want to burn too many races, or if you're a distance runner, you get one fast one in, maybe Stanford or some other, paced race, and then you go from there. But no, you're right. The USA to Worlds, I think this would be a bigger issue if there was travel considerations, right? But there's not,
Yeah.
which is why I think they were. I mean, that went into this decision, right, for the time frame too.
I don't think it went. I mean, I'm sure it helped the decision. I don't know if it went into it, but I think it helped. This is that's convenient because you think about during when World Indoors was in Portland. I think it was a 1 week turnaround, right? Wasn't it USA's then Worlds
Yeah.
back to back? That's mainly because they had to pay for every day they had the track in that building. So, but again, World Indoors is very different from World Outdoors with the trials and all that stuff. So, but I don't know. I just think that July 15th, we're kind of forgetting that is super early. We're having Worlds in July. We've never had that. So,
yeah,
I don't know. At least since 2000,
again,
I don't know.
We have 27 months to do the ramp up to that, to do the preview, the countdown to the July Worlds. So we'll check in.
I'm already.
But
I'm already ready to go.
here's but like with you're mentioning Portland World Indoors. Don't they always say it takes a day to adjust to each time zone? So if you're West Coast and you're going over to Western Europe or something, like it's taking you more than a week to get adjusted to that time. So that would be really, really tough if, 2022 the World Championships weren't in Eugene, but they were in London, right? Or Berlin.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough turnaround just to get your legs underneath you to get acclimated to the time zone. But because you're just going to stay in Eugene, I think for the American athletes are going to be fine. The other countries countries trials, I'm guessing they'll bump a lot of those up into June. But we knew this wasn't going to be perfect as soon as things started getting canceled. Like there was going to be some disruption, something that did go to plan, and it could be off schedule a little bit. I think this is on the more manageable side of things.
Yeah. I guess the one collateral damage could be that some international athletes have to choose between doing the NCAA system of regionals 2 weeks NCAAs or going to race at their national championship. That might be a situation, right? So like,
oh yeah,
we don't
you're
know,
right.
but I mean, because again, NCAAs you need to be at 2 meets basically in order to compete at NCAAs, compete at regionals and finals. So, but we don't know who that like. Imagine if but not all the countries require you to do
Yeah.
like national championships. A lot of them are just like, hey, you're good, we're going to pick you. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
Divine Odeduru needs to run at the Nigerian national championships for him to be selected. They're like, you're good, you're running, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's more an issue for, I would guess, the British athletes, especially the mid-distance British athletes, where there's a lot of depth and they do some trials situations. Kenyan athletes, although it's pretty rare for a collegiate Kenyan to make a team because the team's so difficult. So maybe you're right. They could avoid that, but in terms of interest level, though, I think Link and I were talking about this when we were recording the show that you didn't like. It is kind of cool that it builds to like an apex of, hey, if you think of USA's as the semifinals, right, or the conference tournament to the World Championships NCAA tournament, it's kind of nice that there's not a month in between the two things, right? From a spectator perspective of following the sport.
Yeah, I mean, spectate. We should always think spectators first, right? In the end, because that's one problem with track and field is that we don't consider spectators as often. We're like, no, we need to give all these athletes 10 full days for us to complete
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
a world championship that we can do in
Right.
2 days when it's a national championship. So no, yeah, I agree. It's good for the fans.
Think of it. Think of it from this. Yeah. Think of it from the 2019 perspective. Imagine, and let's just take one event. And I know the 400-meter hurdles isn't the most important event for everyday fans, at least not yet. But like you had Sydney versus Muhammad in that race, a world record gets down. Goes down. It's an awesome race. And then imagine 2 weeks later, you're running that back at the World Championships, right? That's kind of cool. Like that's kind of like there's still momentum from that record. There's still interest in that record, and you don't need to wait because when there's meets in the interim between USA's and Worlds or USA's and Olympics, you never know who's going to show up. It's awesome when good people do show up, but they're not guaranteed to show up. With Worlds and Olympics, if they're healthy, they're going to show up. So you get that rematch right away, or you get that awesome event happening right away. You don't have to wait for it. So this year that would have been cool, at least even just for one event. Didn't ultimately matter because they ran a classic race anyway, even though it was 6 weeks later. But like, I'm just thinking about the attention span of most fans and most people who are interested. Kind of keeps it going a little bit there because every other sport does it that way, right? There's not the NBA, there's not the conference finals and then a month off. I mean, they do take a kind of a big of a break depending on how quickly those series get wrapped up. But it's like boom, 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 boom. Season's over. Move on. Next season.
Yeah. I mean, I always still think though that we should get away with the whole world championship model and go to a 4 major model, because then it would be like you could have that boom 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 4 different times. It's like, oh, it's a
Mm-hmm.
boom 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 the first time around, boom 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 second time around. This is like a song, boom 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 a third time around. But
Well, even think about it from like the perspective of the NCAA season, right? There's not there's not a conference meet and then a huge break, and like cross country and track operate on that every other week cycle, even throughout the regular
yeah,
season. Almost teams are usually trying to go to a meet, uh, every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks, depending on how much the team likes to race and compete. But there's not these huge lulls in the action, so you can kind of be like following along. Oh, this person won this week. Let's see if they can do it again in a couple weeks, or conference, then the regionals, et cetera, et cetera. With USA's, it's awesome because you get this do or die meet where people are going to favorites are going to get beaten. People are going to be left off the team who you thought could go, and then 2 weeks after that, you get the ultimate answer to the question of who's the best in the world. Like that's awesome.
it is awesome.
So stop
So
downplaying it with your charts and your numbers about how bad this is going to be, Gordon. This is going to be a great thing. Let's just be happy
I
that
need some take.
2022 is. Yeah,
I need a take.
I saw your chart, and your chart was interesting. I think it is noteworthy because here's the thing, though, and this gets into a little bit of a different topic. When the U.S. underperforms at major championships, there's always some people are grasping at takes, and it's never just like, well, these 3 things went bad and they had bad luck in these areas, and that's like skewing the medal count really low, right? And if these other 3 weird things happened, the US would have been fine, so we shouldn't blow this out of proportion. It's never that. It's like the championships were too early, the championships were too late, the relays were bad, the coaching is off, this other country's doing this. Like it's never just the simple explanation of, yeah, you know what? Like we didn't really, like we had a couple people false started and they could have won, and that's it. Do you know what I'm saying? You followed it enough to
Yeah.
know that there's always like this hand wringing afterwards.
Well, I mean, the one example I think about, which completely got broken apart, uh, the my take got basically stomped on after what Grant Holloway did in 2019 was in 2017, Fred Curley was burnt out. And Fred Curley was the best runner in that 4x4, but then he got walked down by Trinidad and Tobago. And we're like, how
Hmm.
does this happen? How does Fred Curley, who was throwing it down massive, he was having like a Michael Norman type season, right? Where he was running out of his mind indoors, went and dominated outdoors, was dominating, did well at USA's, but he just like burnt out by the time he ran in 2017 Worlds. And that 4x4,
Hmm.
it wasn't the Fred Curley we knew from a few months earlier. And the argument
Right.
that you'd say was he was burnt out from racing so much. A&M, they love to race every week. They really treat every weekend like a race opportunity. So you were thinking, oh, maybe he had too many races under his legs, and that's why he was burnt out. Meanwhile, Grant Holloway, who runs 100 races, wins a world title. Now, I do think
Yeah.
there's a caveat. It's the difference between running 60s and 100s versus running 400s multiple times. But that was like my take of like these college kids get burnt out from multiple races, so they're not able to stay on top of their form when it comes to the world championship. They peak for USAs or for NCAAs, but they can't peak for worlds where all the pros can peak for worlds because they kind of start at USAs. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Grant Holloway blew
Well, and
that notion out of the water when he wins in October when he was running December races. So
yeah.
not
Well,
January races.
there's plenty of evidence on both sides of that, right? I remember Karai James, 2011, wins the world championships off of a collegiate season, right? But yeah, there's just as many people who they get to the world championships or the Olympics, the college kids, and they're just gassed because they've been doing this for 6-7 months. My larger point is just like, no matter what the result is going to be, people just reverse engineer the conclusion to base it off that. So if the US does really well in 2022, looking ahead to 2022, they're going to say, "Oh, why don't we do this more often? Why don't we have like this tiny little break and the US will be even better?" And then if they do horribly, they're going to say, "Oh, this was a bad idea. Why did they do it like this?" And different athletes are going to respond to it better. Maybe Grant Holloway was better because he had that big break, right? And if he did a shorter turnaround, if it was a 2-week turnaround this year, maybe he wouldn't have done as well. Like that could have helped him, or vice versa. Maybe he would have been even better. Maybe he'd have won by even more if he had only 2 weeks off after. Like you just don't know. But usually the cream rises to the top, right? But it is sports. It is unpredictable. I remember there was one year, it was 2015, right? When the US had a low medal count. That was 2015. I believe
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. And it's
Yes.
like, but then when you're talking about 30 is always the number that's like good. That's like success. Like, oh man, if the US does really well, they're going to get 30 medals in this championship. That's still a very small number of that's still a pretty small sample size, right? Because then you're saying, okay, 25 is bad, 30 is good, 32 or something is great. But that can be yeah, like one guy, Fred Curley, not having a good meet, and then well, they still medaled in the 4x4, but they didn't get the gold. You know what I mean? Like one
Yeah.
person can impact that a lot, or two people, right? Or a distance race goes fast instead of going tactical, so then that medal opportunity is out the window. Like it's hard to draw really, really big conclusions from a series of individual events where everybody is coached differently too, right? They're not the Carolina Panthers, right? They're not coached by the same person, and they have the same philosophy and leadership and made all the same off-season decisions, right? This is a whole bunch of people operating independently to comprise one team. And then so to pull out a result and be like, that's it, right? I mean, I think that was 2015, right? Was the year when the US women could have swept the high hurdles because they could always sweep the high hurdles, and they got shut out of the high hurdles, right? It's like weird stuff happens.
Very true. So as you know, it's April 13th in the year of Corona. That's what it's not 2020. It's Corona year, and no track and field. And there was an interesting article that got thrown to us in our email a few days ago by our beloved dictator Ryan Fenton. uh, who it was about it was about name, image, and likeness for college athletes. I'm not sure if you clicked on the article. Did you? Did you click on the
Yeah, he
article
sent it to
link?
me. Yeah, what was the
Okay.
source on this? This seemed just made up though. I don't really
It
believe
seemed
that it
made
was
up,
true.
but I just want to talk a little bit about it. So basically, it was an article talking about what potential earnings an athlete can make off their name, image, and likeness. And obviously, when you think of a star basketball player or football player, you know they can make a lot of money in endorsement deals. But they talked about the social media influence that some of these athletes have and how they can make money, obviously, as like an Instagram influencer. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but there was two track athletes they said were in the top 25 for potential earnings in Instagram influencing. And one of the athletes was
Yeah,
Divine
yeah,
Odeduru,
yeah.
who could make $13,000 on his Instagram. And then ranked above him was a woman named Brooke Thomas, track and field runner for Oklahoma State, who I looked up on TFers. She isn't that fast. I never heard of her name until I looked it up, but she runs like a her 60 time is 8.01. She's a 12.8 100-meter runner. So she's not really good at running. But they said she could make $34,000 off her name, image, and likeness. I was surprised with those two
So okay,
names. Do you? Okay, what were you gonna say?
well, I would say back up here. So again, I don't know the source of this, but are they saying that's how much they make just off of Instagram and social media, or in general, that's how much they can make?
I think it's based off of their Instagram influencing. So I think they take your Instagram followers and multiply it by 80 cents, and that's how much money you can make.
Okay, how many followers does Divine Odeduru have?
Uh, I don't know.
I mean,
So the
I
Brooke
never.
girl had 40,000.
Okay, I mean, there's
So the
yeah.
So basically, I looked her up,
I
and she's a very like Instagrammy female typical posts. So she's popular in Oklahoma, I guess. But what made me think was, what do you think a track and field athlete could make off their name, image, and likeness in college? And what do you think someone like Sydney would have made off her name, image, and likeness? So not based off of like, yeah, so yeah, whether it's sponsorship or not sponsorship, like obviously we know you know like Trevor Lawrence of Clemson can make a lot of money. He could get a hair
yeah.
product endorsement. Joe Burrow could get money out of the wazoo when he's on his run for LSU quarterback. But what do you think track and field actually could make? Like
I mean, I
anything?
mean,
Is there, you know,
yeah. Like, couldn't. So you're saying not like a shoe company, or like a you're not saying
no,
like
not a shipping
like a.
company.
I mean,
Just like
Mondo. I feel.
side gigs. Yeah,
I mean, Mondo is the best athlete in Sweden, right? And he was the best athlete of Sweden in Sweden, even when he was in LSU, right? So I'm
yeah,
sure a Swedish company would have paid him a good amount of money to sponsor him, right?
yeah. But do you think
I just think it.
like Mondo though at the same time is like you're picking an athlete who goes on to break the world record. Like what's a typical athlete could make where you're just good in college, but you're not like an all time great like Mondo was. You know what I mean?
I would
Like
think a
you're like
lot
a
of
358
yeah.
miler.
I mean, but the 358 miler is that's not equivalent to Trevor Lawrence, right? The 358 miler is equivalent to like an offensive lineman on Clemson who is probably good at what they do, but nobody knows the offensive line in Clemson, right? There's no recognition of them from the general public. Most people couldn't name those people. Like when you're talking
Yeah,
about starting quarterbacks, you're talking about in terms of marketability, that's the equivalent to the best person on the track team, right? So like what could the
yeah,
best person on every track team make? I don't have any idea how they calculate, like you said, you gave that formula for Instagram, but it's like, okay, so but like could Morgan McDonald have made money from like a I mean, like local running stores I know right now are in a tough spot, but like say 10, 15 years ago when local running stores were more vibrant, like would they have paid, could they have given money to a like the college star from that town more than I think they would have paid them more than $13,000. I feel like that's lowballing track athletes even by track standards. That seems low. I don't know.
But like, what is there value in giving Morgan McDonald $13,000 for like the
I
local
think
running store? You know what I
I
mean?
think so because I think well because I think colleges and universities have different relationships with communities than just like random fast person who happens to live there, right? And obviously we're hypothesizing because this world doesn't exist because they've never gone down that road. But I feel like if Trevor Lawrence is doing local commercials for a diner in Clemson,
In Clemson,
I think
yeah,
that's yeah, I think that's a little different, especially because he's at his peak, right, in terms of popularity. That's different than some guy who graduated from Clemson, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I don't know, someone like Ryan Fenton who went to Clemson, for example, like doing ads. Like I think it carries a bit more weight because they're being mentioned in an ad and they're being used in an ad when they're hot, when people are talking about them,
yeah.
when they're
Well, I
in the
guess
news. It's
what we look at our sport in rose-colored glasses a lot. Do you think that there's businesses out there who would see the value in the endorsement of an NCAA track and field athlete?
for specific. I mean, it would be in the same sort of um, areas that they're sponsoring athletes now, right? This GPS watch or these running sunglasses or this
Yeah,
water bottle or this recovery device. Like it would be those same type of thing. I don't think anybody would be getting rich off of it unless it was someone like a Mondo, right? Or a
yeah.
McLaughlin. But
Well,
they're different. But like, yeah, if some running specialty shop has a new product or some company has some new way to recover or some energy gel or something, I think it would be because they're winning, right? Like there's a lot more cachet in sponsoring the young person who's winning, even if the level is lower than like, here, I got ninth place at USA's. I think so, at least. Especially when you're
yeah,
marketing to younger people.
yeah. Well, I just also think though that the amount of sponsorship and marketing opportunities in the track and field world is already very limited. So I don't think all these products and companies are being like, we just want to give out sponsorships, but we only have the small pool of these pro athletes. We're just waiting to have this larger pool to give more money to all these NCAA level athletes. I don't think that exists. Like, because I think it's better for like if you're a local car dealership, you can't afford to give Cam Newton sponsorship money because Cam Newton is out of your price range, but you can do it for an 18-year-old who is the star of the college football team in your town, right? Whereas if you're a running
Mhm.
store, the budget difference between an NCAA level athlete and like a first year pro or even a top pro is probably not that different because let's be honest, most pros aren't multi-millionaires, right? They have
Mhm.
like they make 40 to $70,000, so they're like kind of in the same basic. I just don't think that there's going to be that many money opportunities, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I was just surprised to see
Well,
this
that
random runner Brooke Thomas being able to make as a track fan, right? I'm reading this article like, ooh, how much a track athlete's worth, and the number one track athlete is worth $34,000, and I never heard of her, and she's not even good at running. So I was just like, what is going on? So I was,
well, yeah, that's the. I mean, all those how much is this person worth or that person worth online lists are usually guessing, right? They're not usually that accurate, and this even more so. Did they look through every single track athlete and figure out who had the most Instagram followers? Like, did they actually go and do that? Like, is
I don't
40,000
know.
the most that anybody had? Like, I feel like there's got to be some other NCAA track and field or cross country athlete that has
Well, you think like
more followers.
Tara Davis, and I bet you Tara Davis has like over 100,000. right?
Yeah, that's why I think this was. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't. This is a blind spot for me. I'll admit that I do not know a bunch
Yeah,
about
Tara Davis is
a lot of
140. Tara Davis is 142,000. Yeah, so
on
she's
its on
could
Instagram,
make a
right?
lot
Yeah,
more. Yeah, on Instagram,
I I don't know. I think they just started.
picking.
There was not much. Yeah, I think they just were like, "Hey, this person has track in their bio. They must be the highest 40,000. That sounds about right." Because that doesn't make
Yeah,
a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it through the lens of Oregon, where that's the highest profile track school, right? And that's like the if you're gonna get the community to sponsor a track athlete, it would be in Eugene, right? That's like the
yeah,
pinnacle. So I could see, 2008 Galen Rupp doing an ad for the Chevy dealership and people being like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. That's Galen Rupp," right? Um, but I don't know other schools, right? Like I don't know, like could Lopez Lamong have done like a Flagstaff Ford dealership, and like would people in Flagstaff know who he was? Like people in Oregon know who the track stars are. They're on. They compete at home. They're in the newspaper. People still get the newspaper in Eugene. Like there's just that tradition there. So there's actual name recognition in other cities throughout the country, even small college towns. Like, did they know the number one runner? Even like, do people in Ames know Edwin Kurgat? I don't know. I've never lived in Ames, so I couldn't answer that for you. I don't know how.
I don't think they
I
do.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much they're following like the local. Well, because in Eugene, like that actually happens, right? Like the town is small enough. They'll bump into them around town. They'll see them on the billboard. They'll read about them in the paper. They'll see them. They'll go. Media covers them, so they go to these meets, so they know what Edward Cheserek looks like. They see like
Yeah,
my dad would see Edward Cheserek on the trail like once or twice a month, and he would tell me, "Oh, I saw Cheserek and the guys out there working out." Like my dad's not rabidly following track and field. He knows about track and field. Um, he's never watched anything I've done personally. No. But like they were out and about. Like he didn't like say, "Oh, I found this runner." Like he knew who Cheserek was, is what I'm saying. So I think if it could work, if it could work anywhere, it would work in Eugene. So that would be an interesting test case. But this runner from Oklahoma State, I'm interested to know in how they stumbled upon her as the top athlete. I wonder how many guesses it would have taken you to come up with her.
oh yeah, I didn't know this person existed. I did
Well,
notice she had.
Divine.
I went to her. Yeah,
I
Divine
wouldn't
was
even guess
random too.
Divine. Yeah, I wouldn't even
Like,
guess
when
that.
are they? Especially, you'd think like Grant Holloway had more Twitter followers than Divine, right? I don't know,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I did notice this Brooke Thomas character. She had like a viral uh, tweet like a year ago where she went to the dentist and she was like on Novocaine or not, it's whatever, like, coming back from the dentist. So she's like high, and she had like a really funny video of being interviewed post surgery. So
Okay.
maybe that's
Maybe
how she
that was
got her
it.
fame. Yeah, had
Who
like
knows?
millions of views.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
so
there you go. And then maybe someone remembered at this website, hey, she does track, so
yeah,
she's got the top potential on NIL right there. Um, yeah, Divine. I know Divine went viral a few years ago with an interview he did when he was competing at World Youth for Nigeria. But I don't know. Like I know he's big time in Nigeria, but I don't know what the how that would translate into dollars for your Instagram feed. I don't even know
yeah.
how many followers he has, but
Well, we're just like two old guys who don't really understand social media monetization, probably, as well as like the young kids, like influence, because influencing is like a whole, you know, economy, right? The influencing
yeah,
economy, and I think college athletes have like an ability to be part of that economy easily. Like we, a
right.
lot of college athletes don't need their local car dealership to call them up and schedule them and sign a contract with them. A lot of these college athletes can go right to the source and use their Instagram fame as a way to get get money. I don't know how that works. I don't know how product placement and Instagram ads works. But I'm sure
Yeah.
these college kids who are brought up in the the vlog era, right, putting their life out there on the internet constantly, kind of know how that economy works. It's like, I mean, Tara Davis, she has
Yeah.
142,000 followers. I'm sure she
Mm.
knows exactly how she could easily get sponsorships left and right as soon as that law becomes, countrywide law. Because it's going to be law in California, right? But this is going to happen.
That Yeah, that's what they said. I mean, they've slow played it because I think the NCAA was like, no, I don't think that. Like, do you want to still be in the NCAA, like USC, UCLA, and Cal and Stanford, or not? You bring up a good point because yeah, we're talking about very old school ways of sponsorship. Maybe it would be an energy drink, right? That thinks, oh, this person goes to a college where there's 50,000 students, right, and they are they have a big following amongst all these students. So maybe it's, man, it's finals week. When I need a pick me up, I reach for Gordon's juice drink that gives me 900 grams of caffeine, and I can, like, maybe that's it, right? Maybe it's just a matter of you want to get to the most popular people and the people who have the largest social circles, and they're athletes on campus, and sometimes they're athletes in non-football basketball type sports, right? Maybe it's just like a person who's really good at this who gets their name out. So it's kind of, it's tangential that they're an athlete, but it's not even essential that they're an athlete. Maybe you're right. Maybe we actually stumbled on what the actual strategy here is after about 20 minutes of discussing this.
Yeah. Look at us. It's quarantine time, and we're here figuring out the economics for future college athletes. That's what we're doing, figuring it out.
Do you want to tell me, we got some time here left? Um, do you want to? It is Bowerman week
It is
on the
Bowerman
show.
Week. So what does that
Yeah.
mean, Bowerman Week, Kevin?
So Bowerman week means we're doing some Bowerman coverage, some content on the site. We have the Evan Jager film part 1 going up today. We have the Shalane Flanagan film later on in the week. We're going to be showing some old races of them, breakdowns of their best moments. I know Lincoln today is writing a top 10 Bowerman athletes of all time. I think he's extending it because they weren't always called Bowerman, right? So he's top 10 Jerry Schumacher coached athletes of all time. It's the Schumacher group there. So yeah, that's it. We're just incorporating a lot of Bowerman stuff. Last week we did Florida week, which was fun. We got to have a Holloway day on Wednesday. So yeah, I guess, do you want to just run through kind of your, like, when was the apex of Bowerman for you? Any key
The
moments stand
apex.
out? Yeah.
Ooh, key moment. Um, I mean, it. One thing I kind of like about is that when I started working at Flow in 2014, there was like no women on the Bowerman Track Club. There's like two, but it wasn't like a team. It was just like, oh yeah, and they have these two women or three women, and I think seeing the evolution of Bowerman Track Club going from like an all male group to now not just a male and woman group, but the female group being better than the male group, and not just better than the male group, but like a world class, female group. I think that's been kind of cool to go from no women to like a bunch of women, but not just like they weren't just like fillers. Like they were actually women who go on to
Yeah.
now become Shelby Houlihan, Kate Grace, Schweizer, all these, and Flanagan obviously winning New York City. But I think that's what's been kind of cool for me is seeing the going from to seeing the creation of the women's side of the team, and not just the creation of it, but the flourishing of that side of the team. So that's what I think has been the apex was Jerry making the decisions like, yeah, we're going all in now on women as well. So, and I think it took Shalane and I think Amy Craig to kind of like start that and be like, yeah, we're doing this, because Jerry probably was like, oh no, we got it good. I got my people, and then I think Shalane and Amy kind of did the nudging to get him to expand. So I think that's how it has.
And
I could be wrong, but
well, now they're in every event, right? Which
yeah,
is, and And it's tough to compare them to other groups because they're just so much deeper and so much better than virtually every single group. You look at the group formerly known as NOP, right? Even them, I mean, they didn't have a huge women's roster, right? They have Hasay, they have Roberry, they have Hassan, they have Klosterhoff, and they've had other women throughout the years, obviously. But it wasn't this huge roster, right? They can, the Bowerman Track Club women can put people on the team in every single track and field event, right? 800 through the 10,000 and the steeple. Like they have everything covered, which is cool. I think it's cool that Shalane retires and then becomes a coach. Like that has a very like team sports element to it of like they're moving on, but they stay like within the organization.
Yeah.
Early on, they weren't branded as a separate group. It was very strange because there was OTC Elite Eugene and then there was OTC Elite Portland, which had two parts. Because if you remember the Solinsky 2659 race, he's wearing the same jersey as Rupp, and they were coached by different people in completely different groups. I think it was 2014, the latter part of 2014, when they donned the red, and then they had a separate group name separate from everybody else. They weren't OTC Elite anymore. In 2011, the Oregon Project changed the jerseys, and then they became a different group as well too. So in the span of 3-4 years there, they went from actual like there was delineated clear teams that you could tell were separate people in each race. So I thought that was cool too. I like the jerseys. Red and black was cool. I like the ones last year. They look like one of those magnetic balls that you put your hand on in science class, and the laser kind of follows it around. I thought that was nice. 2017 though, to me was the biggest year, right? You get Jaeger medals, you get Frericks getting silver, Craig medaled in the World Championships marathon, and then Flanagan wins New York City that fall too. So that was a good one there. I think that's the year Jerry won USATF Coach of the Year that year too.
Yeah. I mean, they basically have. I mean, the fact that they have just like they could put two women in the top three in almost every event from 800 up, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like
Yeah,
unreal.
run through that. Run through that for me. Run through the dream Bowerman women's scenario for the Olympic trials next year. How would that play out?
Okay. Oh, for the dream Bowerman scenario would be, okay, obviously the marathon's out of it, but you do 5K, you would have it be Schweizer and Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
10K would be Infeld and
Merrill.
yeah, Merrill Hall, right? 1500 would be Shelby and maybe just Shelby, and then 800 is Kate Grace, right? Is there anyone I'm
Steeple.
missing? Oh, Steeple, obviously, Frericks and Quigley.
So that's
So
8 people.
no, wait, no, it's more.
That's 8
Yeah, it's
people.
8. Yeah, 8 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So the only
I
ones
mean,
I'm
you
not
just laid
mentioning
out.
right now are Cranny, what's her name? The Wisconsin athlete, triathlete.
Gwen Jorgensen? Gwen Jorgensen.
Jorgensen.
Yeah.
So, Cranny, Jorgensen is the only people I'm missing, right? There might be someone else.
Well, Amy Cragg, obviously, she's hurt.
I mean, Craig. Yeah.
What wasn't able to compete in the marathon. I believe that's it. I had the list, but yeah. So you're saying
Yeah.
so here let's run through this. Let's run through this
They
one more
could
time.
get 8. With
Yeah.
I think they'll get 6, but they'll get 8. They could get 8.
Yeah. So here's the path. Here, just to summarize, here's the path for the Bowerman women to get 8. Grace in the 800, Shelby in the 1500, Fraser and Schweizer in the 1500 or in the 5000,
And 5.
10,000 Hall, 10,000 Hall and Infeld, and then steeplechase Quigley and Frericks. That's not even a reach, right? To say 8.
Well,
Like
you
you're
say
not
that. I
even
guess
like wishfully thinking.
you would argue
I'm
Hall
saying like,
and Fraser are the two like reaches.
okay, but
Reaches is
still,
kind of a harsh word to use there because they're still both really good. Like
but I'm
they're
saying it's not
probably
like
on their
if
bad day
every,
get fifth. Yeah,
right, exactly. My point being, like 6 would be like the low end, right? And 8 is definitely attainable. Also, are they going to sign any new people before next year? Right? They could have somebody else join the fray and they could be even better. So I think you're absolutely right. It's perfectly realistic to see 8 BTC women on the Olympic team next year. And that would be
there is a
crazy.
point though when you have too many, right? Because there's a point when
Well, when
like
you're
you're
competing,
lining
yeah.
people up where they know that there's going to be a failure no matter what, right? Because
Well, because you're not going to get to 3. Yeah, but I think like everybody's kind of got different event specialties, and the way they've metered this out is very smart, right? You don't have too much overlap in there at all, right? It's not like
yeah,
you have five. It's not like you have 1,500 meter women. And the other thing you don't have a situation where it's like, okay, well, this person is there just to like pace these people, or this person's there as a workout partner for these other people. Like they all have their own specialty. They jump in other events and maybe they're stronger or weaker in those other events, but like they all have the thing that they do really well, and they all have the capability of being top 3 in the United States.
yeah. The key that they need
So,
to do is, I mean, the key question is how they run Kate Grace, right? Do they
mhm.
try to roll the dice to try to get 2 in the 15, or do they see that it's a lot? Because you guys, assuming Shelby is going to be top 3 no matter what, you're saying Kate
Mhm.
Grace has to be one of 2, right? And being one of
Right.
2 is a lot harder than being one of 3, right? So
Do the math.
you know,
Yep. Yep. That checks out.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, that checks out.
AJ
So
Wilson,
I don't.
AJ, AJ Wilson though has a similar Shelby
True.
like quality, and she just got beat by Raven Rogers at Worlds. So, but I agree with you. I think the 800 team next year is a little bit by a fraction easier to make than the 1,500 meter team. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And
You
you're
know,
right.
I mean, because
The
Kate Grace
perspective
would have
of
made the
there's no other Bowerman person there.
yeah, Kate Grace would have definitely made the 800 team in 2019, 100%. But we'll never, I'm sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
When we
because
were
the
talking to
1500 team is hard, man. You got Jenny in there, you got some young, Nikki Hiltz is good now, so I don't know.
yeah. Well, when we were talking to Nikki 2 weeks ago, you probably didn't listen to that podcast because you weren't on it, but it was Lincoln's like, does it suck to compete in an event that's like really hard, the 1,500? And she's like, as compared to what? Like the 5K? Like, what's the easy event? She's basically like, tell me which one's easy, and that's the one I'll do. Like, it's really hard to figure out which one is going to be the most navigable. Now, there'll be like injuries and weird things that happen that break open a slot here or there, but you don't know that until much later. And by that point, you've already chosen your destiny. But the 15, I think when you have Shelby and Jenny there as just mainstays, and then you have people like Sinclair Johnson and Nikki Hiltz, and we don't know what Eleanor Purrier is going to do, right? If she runs the 15, she's obviously dangerous there as well too. American record holder in the indoor mile. Yeah, there's a lot there. 800.
Would this is crazy thing, but I would say that the 5K might be the easiest. Is that weird?
No, that's always been the case. That's always in for the U.S. in recent history. It's
Yeah,
changing now though, because when it's changing now because what Schweizer and Fraser are doing is just like lowering the time bar
yeah,
tremendously. Now that a lot of that's going to depend on how that race unfolds, but the 5,000 always seemed like okay, the 10,000 people have already qualified, now they're doubling back. The 1,500 people have qualified, now they're doubling back. It's that tweener race, but I think
yeah. Where
remember
like
they've never.
the fifth place gets to go because 2 people scratch.
Mhm. The U.S. Remember the U.S. women have never medaled in the 5,000 at the World Championships or Olympics. Now they didn't have it as an event for the World Championships for a long time because they had the 3,000 instead. But the U.S. has got medals in the 10,000. The U.S. has got medals in the steeple. The U.S. has got medals in the 1500. There's something about that 5,000, and part of it, I think, is the dynamic of how that race is run. But I also think another part of it is who decides to run it, who ends up in that race, right? Because if Shelby and Jenny were, I guess, were in the, well, I don't know. Last year's 5,000 was so fast; it's hard to imagine them medaling. But I think oftentimes, like the best 5,000 meter runner is running some other event besides the 5,000 in the United States. That's been the case for a while.
If we took all the steeplers, 10K runners, and 1,500 runners and said, hey, we're canceling all those events, you only get to run the 5,000, what is your 5,000 team? So you have, Sisson and Huddle in there. You got Infeld and Hall. You got Quigley, Frericks, and Coburn. And then you got Jenny, Shelby, Schweizer, Nikki Hilch, Schneider, Purier, all of them. All running the 5,000.
I mean, right now, if they had to run right now, just on recent results, I'd go Shelby, Purier, Schweizer, in some order. That would be my team.
So no Coburn.
Yeah. No so Coburn. She would be interested. So has she ever been in like a super? I know she was going to run a 10K for real this year before it got canceled. Has she ever been in like a really fast 5,000?
I don't know. I mean,
so my blind spot on that, I admit, would be the steeplers, just because we don't have as much data on them. But I think Coburn would certainly be in the mix. I remember she paced.
She doesn't have an outdoor 5K on the World Athletics page. Has she never run a 5K? No. This cannot be a thing we just discovered. Hold on. World Athletics does not have a 5K for her. Hold on.
This is a Gordon Mack investigation here. His head just exploded when he found out that Emma Coburn may not have ever run
She's never run a 5K in her life. No. Okay, hold on. We got to check them out. So, Emma, you got to run a 5K.
Keep digging.
So she's run obviously everything. All right, let's bring up mile split.
Keep going, Gordon. Find the truth.
5,000. Oh my goodness. No. Oh, wait.
Uh-oh. What did you uncover? Tell us what happened.
I'm looking.
Give me facts.
I'm trying to see.
I need to know.
If she ran 5,000 in high school either.
Well, that'd be
when
pretty
am I getting to high school? Okay, we're in high school now. She ran a 200 in high school. She ran 30.02. 2008.
Okay, so she's run more 200s than 5,000.
Okay, her last 5,000 is on cross country in 2007.
What? Wait, did you look at
She's never run a track 5K in her life. Emma, what are you doing? You need to run a track 5K. You could be a 1440 girl and not even know it. You just got to show up.
Did you look on TFers too?
Yeah, she hasn't run a 5K in her life. Only cross country.
Do you feel like you've been living a lie? You've been covering track for all this time and you never knew this?
That's the ultimate I guess. All right, what do you think of it? What do you think? What do you think Emma Coburn running a 5K like during like a peak like fitness? What do you think she runs? What's the over under? I mean, the over under I guess is 15 minutes.
Yeah, let's do 15 flat.
15 flat. I'll take the under.
Yeah.
I think she runs 14:50.
Steeple PR is what, 9?
Like 9 flat, 9:01.
Right at 9, right? So, yeah, okay, yeah. I think so. That's 3 minutes. That's right at 15-minute pace. I definitely think she's under 15.
Yeah.
What's
Emma Coburn has never run a 5K. I've run a 5K.
What's Frerich's 5,000 PR? Can we get that?
That's a good. I
want to try to find a column here. I know
But
she's
Courtney
run some
Frerichs,
indoors.
yeah, her personal best in the 5K. Wow, her outdoor 5K PB is 16:22 from 2013, but her indoor 5K is 15:02 in 2020. She just ran
1502.
that 15:02.
Okay. Yeah.
15:02.
Steeple. I think I'm almost inclined to say Coburn could go under 1450. Okay, look up this one because she might have run it from Germany, the German steepler, whose PR in the steeple is pretty close to Coburn. Gesa Kraus, Gesakrause. Get me her steeple PR and her 5,000 PR and see if we can line something up here. I just think if you're that good in the steeple, I mean, she's
So her
fast.
steeple
We know.
PR is 9:03, just similar
Okay.
to. So she's only on 15:24 in the 5K.
These people just don't run
Her
5,000.
her 3K PR is only a second faster than her steeple PR. So she's not.
Oh, I got a good one. Give me Alio's PRs. We know she ran some 5,000s because she ran every single race that you could possibly run in college, multiple times. Because Allie's run, I think 15:12 or something, 15:15.
15:16 at BU.
15:16. Okay, and what's her steeple PR?
Her steeple PR is 9:30.
So
30 seconds slower.
Do some advanced analytics and figure that out for next episode. Okay, man, what a shocker! I think we have an episode title now for this thing.
Do you think she's going to retire without a 5K, Mark? She's going to be like, when she's walking down the street, oh, yeah, I used to be a professional runner. Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, what's your 5K? Oh, I never ran one. Oh, you're not a real runner then. Are you not a real runner until you run a 5K? Like, is that how it works?
Well, she's run 5. She paced. Remember that? Was it Peyton? She was pacing the 10,000 and she stayed in for like 6K. So she's got a split at least. No, I know that doesn't count, but I could be imagining this, but I feel like she ran, or she said she was going to run a 10K at Stanford this spring. I think that's something that she said recently. So
that's still wild that she would choose to run a 10K before she runs a 5K.
I mean, people always say that steeple is run at 10,000 meter race pace, but I don't know if that's applicable for someone who's specialized in it that much for every single person. Yeah, I don't know. This is incredible. Again, the things you discover in the last 10 minutes of the podcast. She's not in high school
or college. Like you would think she has like a random like 16:30 from like a conference meet or something, but no.
So that's what I thought. I thought in college she would have done it. She just did like steeple and 1500 in college? Was that pretty much it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up her.
All right.
Yeah, steeple, 3Ks, 1500 miles. It's wild.
Well, if you have any more insight on this ongoing investigation, email us at flotrackpodcast@gmail.com. We'll add it to the dossier. There's going to be a corkboard behind Gordon for next episode where he's charting all this stuff out. Speaking of emails, Lincoln and I will read some of those tomorrow. We got a bunch of them in there, including some people who didn't like your BYU takes. So we'll have to clarify that. Make sure you're on good terms with our friends in Provo moving forward. But Lincoln angered the entire country of South Africa, and so just feuds every single week. It seems like here.
That's right. All right, man. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep. Thanks, Alon, for producing. Thank you for hopping on, Gordon. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.